Do you feel like you should be more organized, but you want to live in your space and not just pose in it? Well, in this conversation with organizing coach Tracy Hoth, we bust the myths about what it means to be organized, why clutter can actually feel safe, and share how to create calm and not just clean corners. Welcome to the Building Resilience Podcast, episode 236, From Chaos to Calm, Nervous System Friendly Organizing with special guest Tracy Hoth. So today's episode is for anybody who's ever looked at their home, their to-do list, or their overflowing sock drawer and thought, I'm such a mess. But what if being organized isn't about minimalism or picture perfect shelves? So I'm joined by organizing coach Tracy Hoth. Now, Tracy is a 17-year veteran professional organizer and certified life coach who's on a mission to empower coaches and entrepreneurs to create streamlined and organized businesses. She is the host of the top 1% globally ranked Organized Coach podcast and the creator of Organized Coach Academy, where she simplifies everything to help coaches become organized CEOs. She's also the founder of the Organized Life Academy. So in this episode, we talk all about the mindset traps we fall into, how organization connects to safety and our nervous systems, and why getting organized isn't about getting rid of everything. It's about making your space and systems work for you. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Let's get into it. Welcome to Building Resilience, a podcast where theory, practical strategies, and inspiring stories show you how to unlock your best life. I'm your host, Leah Davidson. As a certified life coach, speech-language pathologist, and nervous system resilience expert, it is my mission to teach you how to be more resilient to life's adversities. I will show you how to manage your mind, befriend your nervous system, process your emotions, and even eliminate stress. It's time to do more than just survive. It's time to thrive. Let's get started. So welcome, Tracy. I am so happy to have you here. And we are going to be talking all things organization. I always thought I was an organized person. And then I met you and I'm like, maybe I'm not so organized, but we'll talk more about that later on.
Yeah.
First, let's get started. Just give like a quick intro in your own words about who Tracy is.
Yes. Oh, that's so interesting. I am an organizing coach and I help people in their businesses organize their business back ends. And then I also help people organize their homes and lives. And I've done that for 17 years. So that's who I am. I'm in Kansas City and I have four grown kids. And so I'm in this middle before grandkids stage where I'm like, I love it. We're all so free. We have so much fun.
I know. I love it. I was watching or just going through an Instagram the other day, and I can't remember who it was, but they were doing an interview about marriages and relationships and when they thrive, when they're the happiest. And the expert was saying when the kids move out and the dog dies. And it made me laugh because I was like, I can actually have a full discussion about this idea of when the kids move out. But we just lost our dog about a month ago. So I was
Oh,
like, oh, I'm not so sure when the dog dies. But I get the idea of this freedom. So I know what you're
yeah.
talking about, this in between stage. Like, I'm
Yeah.
excited down the road to have grandkids, but
I
I
know.
love this stage now.
Yeah, it's so fun.
But this stage, the one thing I will say is I thought my house had clutter and busyness when my kids were home. And it did. We had five kids. I've talked about this on the podcast before. We live in downtown Toronto. So we don't have, for people who live in the US, and they're picturing large houses and talk about his and her sinks and everything. I'm like, it doesn't work like that in downtown Toronto. Like very similar to like New York, where it's
Mm.
brownstone, tall. So we don't have a ton of space. We had enough space for everybody, but there was always a lot of stuff. But because there was a lot of stuff, the kids had to try to be organized, only allowed one pair of shoes near the door, one this. We had certain rules. But then I found as they started to move out, things started to expand. And I think part of it is for some of them, especially my younger ones, they may be gone, for a chunk of time, but all their stuff is still here. And oh, would you mind if we left this stuff? Or I'm not going to take this to school, or I have no room for this, or our apartment is so small. So, I had done photo albums for all my kids as they were growing up, one every single year. And I'm like, my idea was, the day they move out, I hand them their 18 albums or however many they are. And they're, but no. I
No.
have 5 kids times how many albums sitting there. I'm like, I'm never going to get organized. So it is, I feel like this in between stage. I decluttered last year and I'm going to have to declutter again because it's almost like there's layers. I think maybe it was also me letting go of
Hmm.
things. So that's what
Yeah.
I want to talk about. I want to talk about what is organization all about? How do we do it? And then maybe you can just, pick on me a
Yeah.
little bit with all my thoughts that I've just thrown out there of
Yes, we'll go into all of that.
all right, let's start with some basics. Like what
Okay.
are we talking about here?
I like to start thinking about what the definition of organizing is, to know what you have and to be able to find it when you need it.
No.
And so many
I'm super
people,
organized then.
that's just it. So many people all of a sudden are like, oh, I
Yeah.
am kind of organized. And
Yeah.
like all that pressure comes off that it needs to look like a picture on Instagram with decanted, clear, color coded everything with nothing in reality sitting anywhere. And so when we
Yeah.
think about that and we think about our home, then we feel like, oh, I'm disorganized. But if you know what you have and you can find it when you need it,
Yeah.
and everyone, if you have a family, they can find it and put it
Yeah.
away quickly, then you are an organized person. You have your stuff organized.
I love that. I feel like I just felt the pressure off. Although when you said that your kids know, I'm like, well, the kids are always like, well, as long as mom knows. If she doesn't know where it is, it's totally lost. But I love that idea. It's true because in my mind, it's always this picture perfect. And like I said, because I live in this big home, like I look at people's offices sometimes and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. But they got cupboard space and they have counter or
Mm.
people's laundry rooms or each kid has a cubby. I'm like, we have 2 closets in our entire house because
Oh
it's
my goodness. So
our
you're like probably super organized
well,
because
not
you
me. Well, I know where everything is, but I'm
Yeah.
saying like form like these old houses. Actually, I lied. We have 4. We have 3 in our upstairs. So 3 out of our 5 bedrooms have their own closet, and we have 1 closet on our main floor. And then that's
Yeah.
it.
But
So,
those places that have all those extra closets, they just get stuffed with all extra stuff. And it's
yeah.
like more permission to have a space to put things in. So it
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean I mean, it looks beautiful in the pictures, and you imagine that everything is just so minimal and you can see everything and find it. But in reality, in all the homes that I've been in over the last 17 years, those just get stuffed with things, and then people don't know what's in there. They don't
Oh,
even remember they have it. They just go buy another thing because they don't know where it is.
yeah.
So,
So organization does not equate to minimalist and beautified Pinterest look.
no, no, feels good.
That feels so good. Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
you and I have talked. I'm not a super fan of minimalism because of my own nervous system. But I love the idea that, okay, just because it doesn't look like Pinterest doesn't mean I'm not organized.
right. Yeah. And it can be simpler. And something you had said before well, maybe it was while we had the recording on, that the onion, you're just peeling back a layer of the onion at a time. And
Hmm.
like that, thinking about that, like I'm just getting a little bit more organized or simplifying a little bit at a time. And I
Hmm.
still know where things are in each of those stages 80% of the time. And that's another thing. Like if you're someone who can't find something and you automatically go to, oh, I'm a mess. I never can find anything. It happens to everyone. Even the most organized people still have times when they can't find something. So I like to even think with the organization part of it, if you can find it 80% of the time, you're
Mm,
organized.
I love that. I love that. That's great. I always think with the 80%, the school I went to in Montreal, McGill University, if you got over 80%, I think 80 to 85 is A minus, and 85 and over was A. And I love using that in my life because I'm like, if
Mm,
I get over 80, I'm still an A.
yeah.
So if I'm organized 80% of the time, I can still write it off as an A.
Yes. Yeah, so
All
there's
right.
another layer of freedom right there. Another
Mhm.
layer of, okay,
Yeah.
we're doing
Yeah.
good.
Okay, so say I love that. It's about knowing where it is 80% of the time. But say I'm feeling, okay, I don't know where things are and it's not 80% of the time. Where do I start? Or like me, I'm ready to peel back another onion layer
Mhm.
again and go a little bit deeper and see, can I even get a little bit more organized for myself or minimize things as well?
Yeah. Well, I, since the very beginning, 17 years ago, came up with an acronym called SPASM. That's the that's
I
the
love it.
letters. And I'm like, this is embarrassing, but then I'm like, it's kind of memorable, so
Is
I've
it?
stuck with it all these years.
Totally. Yeah.
So there's 5 steps to organizing that I like to think about. The first one is to sort. And the reason we sort first is so that we know what we have in each of the categories. I mean, I like if you're going to work on paper, go through your whole house, get all the paper in one spot. Now you have everything there and then sort it into categories. And you can make up categories as you go. Maybe
Hmm.
it's junk mail, maybe it's a bill, maybe it's super important document, and you just make the categories up as you go. And even if you're thinking of a closet, when you're pulling stuff out or a drawer, you're putting things into categories as you pull it out. That just is one less step than if you
Yeah.
dump everything somewhere and then have to sort. So, first step, sort. And you're not making decisions in this step,
Hmm.
so it's easy. You can get started doing it.
Right.
Then the second step is to purge. The P is for purge. And in this step, there's a couple things that are helpful. I like to think of the favorites method, where you would choose, you're in a single category now. You know everything that you have, and you're going to choose your favorite thing that you use all the time, the one you go to, and put that because you know you're keeping that. And then there's a little less amount of stuff there. And then you can
Hmm.
go through other questions like, could I live without this? Would I go pay full price for this? Have I used this? Does it work? Does it feel and look good on me or whatever it is? Then you know what you're keeping. So
Mm.
then you assign homes to it. So the A is assign homes, and this is a little bit of a puzzle. Like in the kitchen, it might be a puzzle. Like, where does this
Yeah.
item fit and how often do I use it? Is it accessible? That kind of thing. In this stage, I like to think in zones. Like you might have a baking zone, or like in your closet, you keep all of an item together. So you have that, or a reading zone.
Hmm.
So when you're assigning homes, and then set limits. Now, the set limit step is the containing step. You're setting a natural limit with a container so that when the container gets full, or the shelf or the drawer or whatever, it automatically triggers you. Oh, I need to go back through the steps. Now this space is full. So setting limits, and most people start here. They go to Target or wherever and buy containers, and they see some cute baskets or a new planner or whatever it is, and they go buy that and they think this is going to get me organized. So no, don't do anything, and also shop your house first before you go buy anything.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yes.
Yeah, measure it out. Know exactly what size you need now because you know the items that you're having live there. And you can label things. That's a great one for the rest of your house to know where things are. Add labels, do all that kind of stuff in that step. And then the final step is to maintain. And
Mhm.
that secret is to tie it to things that you already do. During tax season, you can go through papers. During season changes, you can go through your closets. That type of thing.
Right. Right. Oh, I love that spasm. That is a good way to remember it. It is very memorable. Great for the memory. So as you're going through all the different steps, I was trying to think, okay, where do I get blocked? And I'm curious to know, where do most people get blocked?
It's so interesting. I had a conversation with someone and she was like, "Well, the hardest part is to maintain." And I was like, "Interesting." Because I think other people's hardest part
Yeah.
is the purge, to let
Right.
go. Like, what do I
Yeah.
keep or let go of?
Yeah.
Then the other person might be assigning homes and setting limits. they might just not know of products that would be helpful or ways to store things that might be helpful. So that might be hard. It's like a spatial thing where maybe they don't know how it could fit into the
Yeah.
space that they have. So
Yeah.
that type of thing. So it is so individual.
Yeah, and I can see that. That's why I was asking, what is there like a go-to?
Yeah.
Because for me, when you were saying it, like the assigning homes, that is my challenge where, and that's I have to get creative because the
Mhm.
house has like it's limited. So assigning homes, there's only a certain number of places they can go. So you
Right.
get this corner and that corner. For me, it really is the purge. And I'll tell you, the hard part of the purge is when I look at it and I think like, well, I'm for sure going to use that again. And if I just throw it out now, what a waste. I'm going to have to go back and buy it again. So I'll just keep it for when I do need it. The second piece is there's usually often memories associated with things.
Mhm.
So I got better when I did declutter the last time. I just took pictures of stuff that I was like, I'm never going to use this. Just pictures. And then I created a file on my phone that said, memories. But that is, and then also and I know this is also nervous system related. The idea of having enough. And I've always had a scarcity mindset coming from a scarcity mindset. The idea, like when you said to me, I felt my body just, or when you were talking, where you said, pick your favorite. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm hoping your next sentence is going to be, and then pick your next favorite, and then
It
your
totally
next
can be.
favorite, and then your next favorite. Because for me, the idea of having to, and I know that's why it's individual. So for me, I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be like, I'll pick one thing. I remember listening to somebody, I can't remember who it was, it might have been Jody Moore on her podcast where she said, like, um, she just has 10 socks, and those are the 10 socks that she wears, and everything else she got rid of. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like 10 socks? I want to have 10 socks, 10 for sport, and 10 for Jesse, and 10 with these pants and that pants. And then part of it is I know I don't want to have too much, but I also want to allow myself to have what I want because I come from scarcity, if that kind of makes sense. Or maybe it's my
Yeah.
fear of scarcity that drives me to have the desire to have more.
Well, I think it's interesting to think about that before you start organizing, before
Hmm.
you start purging, because it's totally fine. And it kind of dictates based on the size of your container or your
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
How big is your home? What is the space that you have? And do you want to live within your home or go get a storage unit, whatever? But thinking of that first, and then it's total freedom. Like you get to decide how many
Hmm.
socks you want, as an example. And I love that. And when you think of it in advance, it makes the decision making easier because then you're like, oh, yeah, I decided. I chose. Someone didn't tell me I should only have 10. I chose I wanted 30 socks. So
Hmm.
now, as I'm picking my favorites, maybe in each category, like you said, sport
Hmm.
and long and fuzzy and whatever, and holiday, and then then you can pick your favorites in each of those categories.
Yeah.
In your mind, though, you've already kind of set a limit. Like, I think 30 is a good number for me.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
And it's
What?
funny because socks for you might be the thing, but you only have like two frying pans or whatever,
Yeah.
where someone else was like, oh, I need 10 frying pans. I need a cast iron. I need this. I need a little omelet one. Like they're really picky
Very
about that.
true.
So there are, we all have something that we have more than what someone else would think is needed.
Yeah, yeah. Is there ever a time where you're like, okay, that is just too many?
I would never say that to someone. I don't care what their number is or what they keep or not. The part with me and when I was helping people in their homes, it was more like it's not going to fit in the
Right.
space that you have or that you want it to. You can keep that many, but
Mm-hmm.
why?
Mm-hmm.
What is why are you wanting to? Where is it coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want it to fit in that space, it's not going to. So then we have to come up with another solution around where it's going to go.
Right, right. What would you say are the benefits for people to get organized? Like what are the aha moments? What do people afterwards come to you and say after their experience of organizing?
It's so much calmer in their mind
Hmm.
because they know where things are. So they're not searching and fretting and frustrated because they can't find what they need. That's
Hmm.
probably the first thing. The stress level,
Hmm.
because now they know.
Yeah.
I think it's that hanging over them project that they've been needing to do for years, maybe 20
Hmm.
years, someone said. She walked into this space all the time, and it was
Yeah.
20 years later she finally did something about it. So for
Yes.
20 years that's weighing on her that she needs to go through this. It was a mess.
Hmm.
And so just that lightness, a lot of people kind of describe it as lightness, like
Yeah.
I finally did this, confidence because they know the steps now and they know they can go through something and make decisions and organize it and
Hmm.
find it. So those are some of the things.
Yeah, no, those are really good. And I can see that for myself too. You have that lightness and the clarity. Is there like an average amount of time that it's good to give yourself to get organized? I think of that because of like Parkinson's law, like the amount of time you give yourself is the amount of time you're going to take. So do you see that? Is that the same thing when you're trying to organize your home? Like just don't say I'm going to have 20 hours of it. Is there like almost a timeline or a structure that you
Mm.
recommend?
I would say to think about it like a project.
Okay.
Like decide the area or one of my programs, Organized Life Academy, is a year-long program.
Hmm.
But it's like divided into monthly focuses. And so each month we have a focus on decluttering and organizing a space.
Hmm.
And so it's, when you have a project focus, there's a start and end time. If you're just going to organize your home and it's going to drag on forever and you're going to quit and you're going to be unmotivated,
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. And so you have to like when I think of a project I'm doing 12-week years, so quarters, and I'm thinking it's exciting, it's motivating because I know there's an end to it. I know I have a
Yeah.
goal and I'm reaching that goal and I keep with it and I have accountability in place and support that I need to reach that project or to reach
Hmm.
that goal. I think that's so much more helpful and motivating than thinking, okay, I'm going to organize my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No,
like, when
I
does it
can see
end?
that. Yeah. I have actually in my planner on my to-do list to choose the weekends that we're going to go through and do a couple of
Mhm.
rooms again because I feel like it's that same thing where you notice the container has
Yeah.
expanded and now I need to go back to that container. But I know just saying I got to do it, I got to do it. I am like, I don't want to do it in the summer. So I need to pick a weekend in the fall or maybe two weekends because I don't want to do full weekends and just do that. So I can see that being beneficial, project based.
Yes. And you could do little things like when I think about the closet, that's a big area that a lot of people struggle with. I like to break it even down. Like, I'm just going to pull out my tank tops. I'm just going to pull
Mm.
out my jeans and I'm going to sort them into jean, black, white, and I'm going to
Yeah,
try every pair on and I'm going to
yeah,
decide. And
yeah,
so within an hour, you have organized a part of your closet and it's like a boost, mental boost.
yeah,
Like, I can do this. Now you decided where they are, they're neat. You know what
yeah,
you have, you like it, and then you just do like long sleeve shirts the next time you're in the mood to organize or
yeah.
something like that. Kind of doing it like that as well, where you break it down because the
Mhm.
looming entire weekend or whatever might be like you could just do the sports equipment in the garage or
Yeah.
the shoes in the garage or something like that too. But I do also like big
Hmm.
transformations, kind of like getting it all done at one time too. So
Yeah.
just you kind of note how,
You do a mix.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, note how you work best, what would be good for your family. If you keep putting it off because it's a big project, maybe just try taking a little portion of it next time you pull in the garage, do a little
Yeah.
portion or whatever area.
Well, here's where we can transition this conversation because it brought up for me, and I know when you and I had worked together because you're helping me organize digitally my business and everything, my frame of mind and what I say to myself. Because as you were saying that,
Mhm.
do the tank tops or do the sports equipment, I'm like, oh yeah, I do that all the time. I do that on the regular. That I whenever I do closet switches, for summer, fall, or summer, winter, because
Yeah.
I can't have everything in one closet. I actually had these makeshift ones downstairs. Sports equipment we've done, and I was like, okay, there it is again.
Mhm.
I tell myself, oh, I need to have an entire because our house is a disaster. I have to get rid of everything. And then when you say that, I'm just like, oh yeah, yeah, I did that. And I have a pile that I know I call somebody that we give all our extra stuff that we no longer want. I have like a whole system. And
Yeah.
yet my brain loves to say, oh, get organized. You're not organized. So,
Interesting. And there's proof again that you are organized, but it's like the gap in the gain, but we're looking at the gap in this huge stuff we have to do, but yet we're not realizing, oh, look, there's more evidence that you truly are organized. And anytime you want, you could do
mhm.
a little part of it.
Yeah. What are some of the mindset challenges that people have? I mean, we can say people, we can just use me as an example because you've worked with me enough to hear what my mind is spewing out about organization. But what are
Yeah.
some of the typical things that people bump up against with their mindset?
Well, one of them, and I just had her on my podcast. She's in one of my programs, Kirsten, and her thought was, I'm messy. And
Hmm.
she heard it when she was in as a kid, her room was messy. Her mom told her, or someone, somehow she adopted that thought. And the greatest part of her story is that in her business, in what she does when she plans trips, she's meticulous. Like she is so neat and tidy. She'd never put the two together, and she's never thought to question the thought that she's messy. She thought she
Mm.
didn't deserve an organized home because she's messy. And it was so interesting to hear her talk about it and hear her say, I never thought to question that. And so
Hmm.
a lot of the thoughts that people have come from childhood that
Yeah.
they just haven't stopped to question because that's who they are. That's their identity.
Hmm.
And so I just love finding those. And then there was so much evidence on to the contrary that she was messy that she could now pull some of that evidence over. And it's just so fun to see that transformation take place. But
Mm.
yeah, you one of yours. I'm so disorganized. I'll never be able to grow this business.
That was one of mine that we tackled. Yes, yes,
I
yes.
love that. And but yet, then after worked together a little bit, there was so much evidence. And not only evidence from what we did, although I love building that evidence while you're kind of realizing, oh, that thought's not even true, or there's other truth to other things here,
Mhm.
but it to build evidence as we go. But then, just like you said, oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
And, like you do projects in your house all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it speaks to, I resonated when you said that your other client talked about the messiness because I think part for me is I had equated, and this is nervous system, this is experience, previous life stuff, but I had equated organization with minimalism,
Hmm.
not doing too many things, focusing on one thing. And I know where a lot of it came from. I know that, like in my previous marriage, it was very, very focused on minimalism and where I felt like, yeah, but this is where we live. And I know that when I was a single mom, one of my big goals with my two young boys at the time was, let's just leave the toys out because it's fine. because we live here. And then we do a tidy every once in a while. But I really had this sense, and then when I remarried, even the walls in our home, my husband probably would have wanted more art on the wall, and I wanted like photos. And if it was art on our wall, he's an amazing painter. I was like, I want your art on the wall. To me, there was just this need to have it very lived in.
Mm.
So I don't want like the perfect angles and the perfect, I'm fine with having, I want the blankets. I want the, and my husband, like, can we fold the blankets every once in a while? And yes, we can. And I love doing a big tidy. And then, but for me, it's, I want it lived in. And that sort of speaks to this idea of abundance. And then I notice with my business too, I love having so many ideas. That's part of who
Mm.
I am, my human design manifesting generator, if you're into that kind of thing. But I love having so many ideas. And I guess the message sometimes with businesses is pick one thing, keep it simple, go with it. I'm like, I don't want to pick one thing. I've got
Yeah.
like seven things. And so I'm telling myself, well, I guess maybe that's just a sacrifice. I'll do the seven things, but I'll never be able to be big or
Mm.
successful or anything. And
Yeah.
so challenging like how I live. I love living in a home that's lived in.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love it.
and you can see where that came from,
Hmm.
maybe like where
Yeah.
that kind of came from. And I think it's interesting too to think about people like if you're fine with how it is, there's not a problem. Like there's nobody saying, "Oh, you need to get more organized."
Yeah.
I wouldn't even want people to work on organization if there's not a problem with it. But
Hmm.
the problem comes up when you can't find something. Is it so
Right.
lived in that you can't find what you need?
Hmm.
Then someone might want to change that. Or do you have so much that you can't get what you need on your computer? Like, then you might want to change
Yeah.
that or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
until there's a problem,
Yeah.
or you are frustrated or wasting time or buying duplicates or that kind of thing.
Hmm.
What if you just accepted like that's the way I am and I actually like it and I'm fine. We don't have any problems regarding those other things. It's not affecting us in a negative way.
Yeah. So, and that comes down to the thoughts and the mindset about it.
Yeah.
We're all going to have those individual, because I know other people, it is, and I see this myself actually, just in my membership. We talked about years ago, I had worked with, she was a friend and she was an interior designer. And she sort of talked about dividing your homes into red, yellow, and green zones. And the red zones were kind of these high traffic areas
Mm.
where she said, and at that time I was like, well, that's pretty much my entire house. She's like, well, you have five kids living in downtown Toronto. It likely is going to be your entire house. But this was an area that's just high frequency, lots of stuff going on. The yellow zones where there was like a little bit of relief there. We could tidy it up. And then the green zone was supposed to be this oasis where I could just walk
Mm.
into, and it was zen and it felt like, huh. Well, I didn't really have any green rooms per se, but she talked about, can you create like some zen areas where it's just yours? And I realized, well, at 10 p.m., when all the kids are in bed, the bathroom can turn into that green zone because I can set the stage for it. But it
Mhm.
did get me thinking of how our environment does send us these cues. And this is what we talked about in the membership, these cues of safety or danger.
Mhm.
But that's going to be different for everybody.
Right.
Like you may have, looking around externally, are there things that you do start to feel a little bit more activating? And maybe clutter is that, or too many things, or pile up. But I mean, it could be things like lighting, it could be lots of other things. But I do think
Right.
it's interesting to look at your space and
Mhm.
what signals is it sending to your nervous system? Because
Mhm.
I notice that I may love being lived in, but there's this area of my house that when I step into it, it feels like it's just a little bit too much. So that's
Right.
that's sending me those signals of danger.
Yeah. Well, I think that too, the Zen part, like even walking into my bedroom when my bed is made, just
Hmm.
the bed being made gives me that feeling.
Yeah.
Or when I walk into the kitchen and the counter's clear, like
Yeah.
that's what gives me the feeling. Or into the living room and the pillows and blankets are neat.
Yeah.
I like, oh, like I
Yeah.
just even can feel that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's important to recognize because, your nervous system is foundational to everything.
Yeah.
So if your nervous system is sending you those signals and you try to work against it, it's not really going to stick. It's going
Hmm.
to be much harder to maintain because it's not in alignment with what your true nervous system requires for safety. So I think
Yes.
it's really looking at how organized do I need to be to feel safe
Well,
within
and
myself.
here's what I would be interested to have you speak on this because safety may have always felt, I mean, you may have always felt safe needing clutter around you. But what
Mhm.
if you live with someone who has a low clutter tolerance
Mhm.
and they feel safe with less clutter? I mean, clutter might not be the right word, and you want to, or maybe it doesn't have to do with the other person. It's
Mhm.
just like you want to have less stuff so it can all be put away.
Yes.
And then that feeling of safety needs to shift to feel
Mhm.
safe in a decluttered space or a
Yeah.
more minimal, simplified space.
Yeah.
That transition.
Yeah.
Because I think that's
Oh,
what a
this is
lot
a
of
whole
people,
discussion.
I know. And I think that's what decluttering and organizing brings up in a lot of people. And you go back to that because you feel safe over here, where, or, you have habits of over purchasing
Mhm.
stuff. And so that's
Mhm.
what's happening. But there's so
Yeah.
much that goes into it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when you think about safety, like at the most basic level, we're picking up on safety based on the cues around us, neurocepting. It's external cues. That's only one piece of it. Then
hmm
there's the internal cues, and then there's the relational cues. So I think we also have to be careful in thinking that our environment, the space, is the only thing that dictates safety. It's
right.
one factor of it, but other factors are what is going on inside me and what's going on relationally. So I think that's it. If you say you have two people who are very, very counter, well, then you've got to be looking at the relational piece of it because you may be getting cues externally. I may be getting different cues externally, but let's talk about relationally. What can we do to come up with something? And that relational conversation, that relational bond can help you increase safety. And I think it also does come down to, all right, how can I internally create safety regardless of my environment?
Yes.
Like that I think is an important piece too.
And it's so interesting that the relational part, one of my clients has a husband who is very likes to keep things, collector.
Mhm. Mhm.
He likes to keep a lot of stuff. And she wants him to get rid of a lot of stuff. So
Mhm.
in at our live event, she was getting coached on this, and it came out that she is a lot like him. She likes to do a lot of stuff, and she's interested in a lot of stuff. And he's always telling her, you can't do everything. He wants
Mhm.
her to do less stuff. It was so fun.
Yeah.
And it gave her such a beautiful understanding of him and
Mhm.
realizing that she's so much like that, but in with activities and learning new things. And so
Mhm.
because she could identify with that, now it's just so fun to see their relationship and he's letting go of a few things and
Yeah.
she's saying no to a few things. And so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
been
I
fun
think
to
the
watch.
relational piece, especially in this area, is really important too. But of course, it always comes back to who are you being in the relationship? How do you create your own safety? How do you learn how to do it for yourself? It doesn't mean you don't
Yes.
need other people. We need other people. We heal in
Yeah.
connections. We need to have that connection. But the more we can take care of ourselves, then we can do it relationally. And then we can have discussions of what do we want our environment to look like together that's going to support both of us.
Yeah. So I can totally see where if you can create that safety in yourself and you're working on that and you're learning how to do that, that then it would be easier to let things go. Like for
Mhm.
sentimental people that say, they're sentimental, all these items are sentimental, that would be so helpful that they can now say, okay, but I can feel safe without that item.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
some we hadn't talked about too, to kind of flip that. I thought of it earlier when you were sharing the part where we want to keep these things because we might use them. I always challenge people to think about, okay, but we're keeping someone else from using them at this time. So we're keeping it. And then I was like, well, think of the I think of Toy Story and I think of the little creatures and the little items and how their life is so boring when they're just sitting in your closet. When you could give them out and someone could be using them and they'd have this
Yeah.
adventurous life. And so I'm like, oh, it's the other side of it. And they're going to have so much adventure if you would let that go rather
Yeah.
than keep it in your attic for 20 years.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And I do think it's easier to let things go the safer you feel in
Yes.
yourself with everything. Like it's just easier. Or finding ways to capture what it is that that object is bringing you, feeling
Yes.
wise, regulation, like all those things. So sometimes it's just a connection to the past or connection to a
Hmm.
certain time or feeling. And how can
Yes.
you bring that into your life without having the object
Yeah.
there?
That's one of the things she said too, was her identity. Like she got rid of
Yeah.
her entire wardrobe, like work wardrobe after 8 years or eight, I don't know, 8 years. That was just her identity. So we have
Yeah.
so many of these things that we like wanted to be a painter or so
Mhm.
we bought all the stuff and then we
Yeah.
never did it. And so we just
Yeah.
think, well, maybe one day I'll do that.
I know.
But
That's
it's seeing
right.
that there's so many aspects of it and such different levels and
Yeah.
deepness to this whole process. And it is organizing is a journey to discover yourself and heal and learn how to feel safe
Right.
and understand all of that through the process of
Yeah.
organizing. So
And
that
I
makes it.
love, this is a great place to end it, this idea that it's a journey.
Mm,
Because I think I've made the mistake before in thinking, like, well, I'm just going to declutter my house as if it's going to be a one and done thing. Like, no, because we still live, I still develop interests. I still, oh my gosh, like the books and journals, because I develop new interests. Like, I remember when my kids were all officially gone, the dining room was traditionally our study hall for everybody, and they had baskets, and in the baskets is where they could keep their study stuff. So I
hmm.
was like thrilled. I don't have all this study stuff and binders. And then I decided, I guess there was a year maybe where they were completely empty. And I went on my journey to create the stationery line. And so, what do you need? You need to see what different people are doing in different styles and then integrating all the doodling. So, there's these pens and this paper and these paints. So, now I have baskets filled with books and doodles. But it's a reminder for myself instead of like labeling that as like, oh, see, I still have clutter. No, it's this idea of we do go through different transitions. And there will be, that's why you do want to get rid of some things. And it's okay if
Yes.
new things come in to replace it because that's what I'm doing right now. And probably eventually at some point, maybe that will move on and I'll come back to having no baskets in that area. But
But what's so cool is those baskets, you know where your stuff is.
yeah,
You have a
yeah,
place for it in a home and you can find it and it's there. That's
yeah.
so organized.
There you go. There you go. And it's an ongoing journey. So I appreciate this
Yeah.
so much. Please tell everybody where they can find you. You already mentioned you support businesses and you support life. So maybe tell a little bit about that and then let people know where they can find you.
Yes, my business is called Simply Squared Away. And so simplysquaredaway.com is my website. You can find everything on there. And my podcast is the Organized Coach podcast. And yes, I have the Organized Coach Academy, which helps business owners and coaches organize the back end of their business, their time, their files, digital assets, and processes. And
Mhm.
then Organized Life Academy is a program where we have calls and we declutter and we implement routines in our life, and there's a community in there. So, whichever is right for
I
you
love
at this
that.
time. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here and helping us all get a little bit more organized.
Thanks, Leah.
Thank you for listening to the Building Resilience podcast. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about managing stress, building resilience, and leading a more purposeful life, then make sure we're connected on Instagram and Facebook at Leah Davidson Life Coaching. You can also subscribe to my weekly newsletter at www.leahdavidsonlifecoaching.com/newsletter. Looking forward to connecting.